1, 2, 3, 4. Good morning. Good. To do the gavel. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to meeting number 2 of Toronto East York Community Council. Our chair is en route, so I will try to step into his shoes and start the meeting. And first of all, I'm going to do the acknowledgement. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ellen. The Chair and members of Toronto and East York Community Council gratefully acknowledge that the Toronto and East York Community Council meets on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Could I ask for any declarations of interest this morning? Do you have a declaration, Councillor?
I do. Let me just find the item number. I printed this way too small. It's item number TE 2.59 speed hump poll results, Penrith Street. I live on Penrith Street, so might be appropriate for me not to participate.
So Councillor Cressy will take carriage of that for you. All right. You see we have a schedule of timed items there. And now I'd like to have a motion for the minutes. Councillor Bradford, would you like to move the minutes from the last meeting? Okay, all in favor? Yep. Opposed? There he is. And now our chair is here, so I'm going to turn that back over. Councillor Perks.
Here's how it is.
Do minutes?
The items, not the report. So if you want to quickly go through, there's that. These are page. Items. So these are all some new items. You'll have another one from me there. So you'll want to hold on this. You'll keep on these white. These are just indications. And it's up to you.
Good morning, all. If you're here to make a deputation and you haven't pre-registered, could you see the clerk over here? Just to make sure that you get your name on the list. The next thing we're going to do is to do the pre-clearance of the agenda. If you could turn to page 18 of the goldenrod sheets. We'll start at item TE 2.12, appointments to Business Improvement Area Boards of Management.
I'll move the item.
Councillor Cressy's moving the item. Thank you. All those in favor?
What number was that?
12.
12.
On page
Okay,
18.
yeah.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. This is a long one. There we go. TE 2.13, designation of fire routes, an amendment to Chapter 880, fire routes 55 East Liberty Street, Ward 10.
I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2.14, designation of fire routes, an amendment to Chapter 880, fire routes 14 Spadina Road. Councillor Layton. It's not.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair.
Got a promotion there.
On TE 2.2, I'd like to move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2.15, 900 and 980 Lansdowne Avenue and 30 Powerhouse Street, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application status report. See no deputations there. Councillor Bailao is...
Good morning.
Oh, there you are.
Move staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2.16, Isabella Street, zoning amendment application, preliminary report. Councillor Wong Tam.
Thank you. I'd like to move an amendment to provide further accommodations for childcare, sign language interpretation, all costs borne by the applicant.
Okay, so we'll take the amendment and the item together. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
I took them together. Oh, okay. I innovated. Item 2.17, construction staging area time extension, Phase 1, Adelaide Street, 19 Duncan Street. Councillor Cressy.
I'm going to reluctantly move the staff recommendations.
All those who want to reluctantly vote in favor? All those who reluctantly vote opposed? That carries. Item TE 2.18, construction staging area, 281 to 289 Avenue Road. Councillor Matlow.
I have a motion to reject.
Pardon?
I have a motion to reject it behind you.
Okay. Sorry, do I have a request to hold this item down for debate?
He's turning it down.
He's turning it down, sorry. So on the motion to reject the request for the street closure, all those in favor? All those opposed? That carries. Item TE 2.19, construction staging area, 11 Lillian Street, sorry. Councillor Matlow.
On this, I'm moving in favor of staff recommendations.
On the staff recommendations, all those in favor, opposed, that carries. Construction staging area time extension, 241 Jarvis Street, Councillor Wong Tam.
I would move the staff recommendations.
On the staff recommendations, all those in favor, opposed, carried. 221, installation, removal of on-street accessible parking spaces, December 2018 delegated. I'll move the staff recommendations. All those in favor, opposed, carried. TE 2.22, installation, removal of on-street accessible parking spaces, December 2018, non-delegated. That's Councillors Bailao and Bradford. Either of you will do. Go ahead.
Move to support the staff recommendations.
There you go. That was done with authority, people. All those in favor, opposed, carried. TE 2.23, removal of on-street accessible loading zone, Carrington Avenue. Councillor Bailao. All those in favor, opposed, carried. TE 2.24, accessible loading zone, Gladstone Avenue. Councillor Bailao. All those in favor, opposed, carried. 2.25, accessible loading zone, Perth Avenue. Councillor Bailao.
Move staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. TE 2.26, accessible loading zone, Elm Street. Councillor Layton.
I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 2.27, accessible loading zone, Shaw Street. Councillor Layton.
Staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. TE 2.28, school bus loading zone, parking regulation amendments, Rogers Road. Councillor Bailao.
I'm going to have to ask for a defer for a couple of months because I'm working
So
with the
defer
school.
to
And they're having second thoughts about this.
March or April?
March.
March? To the March meeting? Very good. Item TE 2.2, oh, sorry, we have to vote on that. All in favor of deferral? Opposed, carried. Item TE 2.29, student pickup drop-off, Oriole Park Public School. Councillor Matlow.
I support the recommendations. In favor.
All those in favor of the staff recommendations? Opposed, carried. TE 2.30, two-way traffic operation, Gloucester Street. Councillor Wong Tam.
Thank you. I'd like to move the recommendations in the staff report and also to thank the members of the site plan working group. This is how we came to this resolution for Gloucester Street.
Congratulations. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. TE 2.31, realignment of parking permit parking area, 6G. I got a little confused there. To exclude the development located at 219-231 Dundas Street East. Councillor Wong-Tam.
I would move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item 2.32, extension of permit parking hours to Tecumseh Street. Councillor Cressy.
I'm just going to hold that down for a moment. I'm working on an amendment with staff.
Hold.
Yes, please.
Item TE 2.33, removal of overnight on-street permit parking Burnside Drive. Councillor Matlow.
I move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor of the staff recommendations, opposed, carried. TE 2.34, parking regulation amendment, McKay Avenue. Councillor Bailao.
I'm going to have to defer that for 1 month.
Pardon me?
I'm going to have to defer that for 1 month.
Defer to the February meeting? Okay. Item TE 2.35. Oh, all in favor of the deferral? Opposed, carried. It's been a few years since I've done this, guys. I apologize. Yeah, let me have some coffee. Delicious coffee to clear my mind. Okay, TE 2.35, parking amendments Cooper Street and Freeland Street. Councillor Cressy.
I'm going to move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 2.36, parking amendments Fraser Avenue, Jefferson Avenue, and Pardee Avenue. Councillor Cressy.
I'm going to move the staff recommendations, and I'd like to extend my thanks to the Liberty Village BIA for their collaboration on this.
Thank you indeed. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 2.37, parking amendments Scott Street. Councillor Cressy.
I'm going to move the staff recommendations, please.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Get used to doing Councillor Cressy's business, folks. Item TE 2.38, parking amendment Clinton Street. Councillor Layton.
I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 2.39, parking amendments Crawford Street. Councillor Layton.
I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 2.40, additional parking amendments, staging area, 33 Dunfield Avenue and 44 Lillian Street. Councillor Matlow.
I move the staff recommendations.
Moves the staff recommendations. All in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 2.41, parking amendments, Carlton Street. Councillor Wong-Tam.
I'll be moving the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE.242, right turn and left turn prohibition amendment, Oakwood Avenue at Glenhurst Avenue. Councillor Bailao.
Approve staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 2.43, turn prohibitions 578 Front Street West. Councillor Cressy.
I'm going to move the staff recommendations, please.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 2.44, turn prohibitions Bathurst Street and Nassau Street. Councillor Layton.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move the recommendations in the report.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 2.45, extending the limits of short-term parking Gerrard Street East. Councillor Wong-Tam.
Move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 2.46, parking amendments Chapman Avenue. Councillor Bradford.
I'd like to move to support the staff recommendations, and I'd also like to thank former Councillor Janet Davis, area residents in George Webster Elementary, city staff for making the school zone safer in the area.
Very good. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 2.47, parking amendments, Woodbine Avenue. Councillor Bradford.
Just a quick question for staff on this.
Then we'll have to hold it down if that's okay.
Hold it down then.
All right, very good. Item TE 2.48, stop control Scarth Road at South Drive. Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to approve the recommendations within the report and thank the previous councillor for her initiation of this item.
According to Now Magazine, Toronto's best councillor. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 4 years in a row.
Like 7 years in a row. Second.
Okay, item TE 2.49, all-way stop control Indian Grove and Rideau Street. I'll move approval. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.50, traffic control signals Oakwood Avenue and Rosemount Avenue. Councillor Bailao. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.51, all-way stop control Richmond Street West and Niagara Street. Councillor Cressy.
I'm going to move the staff recommendations and note that in this case, it met the warrant for a new traffic light, and this will become a routine. I'd like to commend former councillor Mike Layton, as this is in his ward, for kicking this off.
Watching the baton be passed between the bros, it's so nice. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.52, stop control Clooney Drive at Chestnut Park. Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to approve the recommendation within the report.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.53, all-way stop control Leonard Avenue and Wales Avenue. Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to thank the previous councillor for initiating this and
You guys swap socks too, right?
and approve the recommendations in the report.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. TE 2.54, all-way stop control Greenwood Avenue and Strathmore Boulevard. Councillor Cressy.
I'm going to move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
All-way controls at Greenwood and Strathmore?
Greenwood Avenue and Strathmore Boulevard.
That's my word.
Councillor Fletcher's, I think, actually.
Yeah, Leah. We got an email from Leah to defer.
No,
We're going to hold that down for 1 second.
Let's hold that down.
email from Nick to defer that.
Okay,
This is Ward 14, right?
okay, yeah.
There are going to be some of these because of all the ward renumbering.
More ward, I have some for you.
So
Defer 1 month.
we'd like to defer that for 1 month to the February meeting.
Yep.
Please, folks, take it easy on the clerks. The numbers are all different now, so there are going to be occasional small
Oh,
errors.
that's what happened. Yes, that's what happened. Okay.
Yeah. It'll take a little while to get used to the new geography. TE 2.55, speed limit reduction, Dufferin Street delegated. Councillor Bailao.
Approve recommendations in the report.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.56, speed limit reduction, Dufferin Street, non-delegated. Councillor Bailao.
Approve recommendations in the report.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.57, speed limit reduction, Salmon Avenue. Councillor Bradford.
Thank you very much. Motion to support the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.58, speed hump poll results, Brunswick Avenue. Councillor Layton.
Yes, I would thank the local city councillor, the previous city councillor, for his work on the item, but it's not quite baked yet, and so I'd like to refer this for one cycle to the next
Defer till the February meeting.
the February meeting.
Very good.
You'll see, this is a reoccurring thing in the overlap that the former Ward 20 councillor represented, that there's a bit more work that needs to go into them.
Oh dear. Okay, so all in favor of the deferral? Opposed? That carried. TE 2.59, speed hump poll results, Pendrith Street.
I have carriage.
Councillor Layton.
I have carriage. He declared a conflict.
Oh, he declared an interest earlier? Okay, very good. He's out of the room. All those in favor?
No. I will be moving the alternate recommendation.
The alternate
To
recommendation,
install the speed humps.
which is to install. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We could just alert Councillor Layton that he's out of the danger zone. Item TE 2.60, traffic calming speed humps Howland Avenue. Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll be deferring this item for one cycle as well, please.
February, very good.
Yes, we're waiting a petition from neighbors.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 2.61, traffic calming speed humps College View Avenue. Councillor Matlow.
I have an alternative motion.
Okay, you've had time to digest that. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 2.63, traffic calming speed humps Sandford Avenue. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, I have a motion, Mr. Chair.
Did we skip 6-2?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Have another step.
6.2 was buried at the bottom of the page. I have to go back to it. What did I do there? Oh, I did that. Okay. Item TE 2.62, traffic calming speed humps Lascelles Boulevard. Councillor Matlow.
I have an alternative motion.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Sorry. Now to TE 2.63, traffic calming speed humps Sandford Avenue. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, there's a motion I think the clerks have. Thank you. And that would be to delete the polling requirement and approve the installation of traffic calming on Sandford, and also to alter sections of the throat of that one-way street to prohibit cars from going the wrong way off of Greenwood.
Very good. Before we vote, members, I just want everyone to be aware, this is using a change in the way the bylaw operates, so it is now possible for Community Council to delete the polling requirement. Just want you to be aware of that. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thanks to Councillor Paula Fletcher, I believe. Item 2.64, traffic calming speed humps Collin Avenue. Councillor Matlow.
I have an alternative motion.
Okay, similar method. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 2.65, traffic calming speed humps Langford Avenue. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, I am just going to defer that for 1 month. I'm sorry I didn't give you that motion.
So defer till February?
Yes, please.
Okay, all those in favor of deferring to February? That carries.
Defer to Valentine's Day.
TE 2.66, endorsement of events for liquor licensing purposes. Are there amendments here?
Are we dealing with the item now?
We might as well just,
I have to hold it down.
Oh, you have to hold it?
Yeah, my
Okay.
apologies.
no problem. So we'll hold that in Councillor Layton's name.
One venue. Okay, if I could just make a statement.
Nope,
When the item
get
comes
back
up,
to you.
I'll make a statement.
that's right. Okay. Now, do these next ones need to be?
So we need to add 67 to 82 in business.
Can I have a motion to introduce items 67 through 82 as new business? Councillor Cressy. Do we want to move through these ones now, or do we want to do them after the timed items? It's just past 10 o'clock. The additional items, new business. Move through them? I'm going to take Councillor Bailau's sage advice. Item TE 2.67. Deputy Mayor Bailau? No, we're just going by councillor here. Just councillor. Item TE 2.67, appointment to the Board of Management of Cecil Community Center. Councillor Layton.
Pardon me, so what is
Cecil.
that? Oh, of new business.
Yes. It's been introduced. You wrote us a letter.
I'm going to hold that down for a second then.
We're going to hold that.
Yeah,
You wrote us a great letter.
It was,
thank you.
I stayed up all night rereading it. Scintillating.
Thank you.
The prose, so crisp. Item TE 2.68, parking amendments Dan Leckie Way. Councillor Cressy.
I'll move the recommendations in my letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.69, 156160 John Street Community Consultation Meeting, expanded notice.
I'll move the recommendations in my letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 2.70, 578 to 580 King Street Community Consultation Meeting, expanded notice. Councillor Cressy.
I'll move the recommendations in my
All
letter.
those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.71, parking regulations, Queens Wharf Road. Councillor Cressy.
I'll move the recommendations in my letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. TE 2.72, traffic control signal synchronization at Avenue Road and Chaplain Crescent with Avenue Road and K. Gardner Beltline Trail. Councillor Matlow.
I moved my letter.
All those in favor of Councillor Matlow's letter? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 2.73, improve pedestrian safety on Alton Avenue. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, I'd like to move the recommendations in the letter, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.74, traffic safety on Pape, Strathcona to Riverdale. Councillor Fletcher.
I'd like to move the recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.75, Verrill and Busy Street Planter. Councillor Fletcher.
And I'd like to move the recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.76, permit parking expansion status update.
Yes, I'm just, would like to move that, Mr. Chair, and note that just prior to the end of the last Toronto East York Community Council in the last term, that there were a number of public consultations and we were to get a report on expanding permit parking throughout Toronto and East York. So I would like to have that update by March, either an update or actually the report for the expansion.
Very good. That's exactly what the effect of this motion will be. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.77, heritage evaluations in the Dundas and Carlaw District. Status update. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. This is a great area, former industrial area. We have a plaque district by Heritage Toronto, but not enough of the buildings have been evaluated and are listed and designated. So this is to carry on with that work.
Thank you very much. And I note for Councillor Bradford, we often refer to the added business as the Fletcher section of the agenda. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
There's only one more.
Item TE 2.78, Ravenna encroachment agreement.
Yes, to enter into an encroachment agreement with the resident to waive the fees for this one.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you. That's
Item TE 2.79, use of Nathan Phillips Square for various events in February 2019. Councillor Cressy.
I'm going to move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 2.80, 41 and 45 Spadina Road, Spadina Gardens Apartments. Councillor Layton. Staff getting ahead of you, eh? All those in favor of, no, we don't need to. It's being held. Okay. Item TE 2.81, parking amendments, Russell Street. Councillor Layton.
So I'd like to move the recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And is that complete? our review? Okay. No?
I is
Oh, 82. I'm sorry, I didn't have 82 in front of me.
It was,
Oh, yes, okay. Members, this isn't on your sheets, so if you just want to take a look at item 82, it's been circulated. Councillor Cressy, why don't you tell us what it is and then make a motion?
It's been circulated.
Has it been
in front of
circulated?
us.
Okay, sorry, it wasn't on the agenda. Councillor
So,
Cressy?
thank you, and I'm going to move the recommendations in the letter, and just to provide some background for members of the committee. So what's in front of us here today is to strike a special subcommittee on Ontario Place to host a meeting, which we will work our office with city staff and under members of the committee to strike within, hopefully, the next month. To the details here, within the motion, it identifies the 4 members of council of this committee who would participate. It can only be 4 because 5 establishes quorum for the whole committee. And so it's for that reason that the adjacent councillors in wards 4, 14, and 11 for the immediate adjacent councillors have been invited. And to provide some background on, just very briefly, why this is necessary and critical, it goes without saying that Ontario Place are vital lands both to the city and the province, but the city has a say and involvement, not just with respect to exhibition place and servicing and infrastructure, but also with respect to zoning, with respect to title and ownership. And so it is critical that we get this right, that we provide a forum for the people of this city to have a say, and that this city has a say. And it's for that reason that I'm seeking to strike this subcommittee with the participation of councillors Layton, Perks, and Fletcher.
So I think that this is of sufficient interest to the city that I'm going to call for a recorded vote on it. All those in favor? Councillor Cressy, Councillor Bradford, Councillor Bailao, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Perks, Councillor Wong Tam, Councillor Layton, Councillor Matlow. That's unanimous. Okay. Except for my small errors, we did that quite well. Now, let's return to the 9:30 items. We'll begin with TE 2.1, permanent
Mr. Chair,
closure. Yes.
Could I just ask if, for item number 2.10, front yard parking appeal on Ellerbick, if William Habkirk is here, because I would like to speak with him.
Is Mr. William Habkirk here? The item's timed for
Coming-
10:30. He
coming
may
for
come in a
10:30.
little later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item T 2.1, permanent closure of a portion of Front Street West adjacent to the north side of 61 Front Street West. I have no listed deputations, but I'm going to call, are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none, this is Councillor Cressy.
I'm going to move staff recommendations, please.
All those in favor of the staff recommendations? All those opposed? That carries. Item TE 2.2, permanent closure of the T-shaped public lane at the rear of 371 Bloor Street West and north of Washington Avenue between Spadina Avenue and Huron Street. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none, Councillor Layton.
I'll move the recommendations, the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 2.3, 647, 663 to 665 King Street West, 69 to 73 Bathurst Street, and 58 to 60 Stewart Street, zoning bylaw amendment and rental housing demolition applications. Request for directions report. I do have a deputant registered, Jeff Tabone, or Taboni.
Councillor, or Chair, he has just stepped outside with my staff for a moment. We're working on a technical amendment. I wonder if I could hold
Okay, so
this down.
we'll hold this one down.
Thank you.
This is 9:45. Okay. Item TE 2.4, 22 Beloyal Street. Zoning amendment request for direction. I do have 2 listed deputants. Michelle Kaintz. Hi, Michelle. Come on forward. Okay. So good morning, Michelle. As you can see, there's a button in front of you. There'll be a clock up here that will give you 5 minutes. Please begin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I promised to speak quickly.
We could have some quiet in the room, please.
Pardon me?
Members, staff, we have a deputy. If I have a little quiet. Sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
I just want to speak quickly. I'm very concerned about the accessible access around the area with the design of the building. So I see that its recommendations are not to go forward, but with the Ontario Municipal Board, whatever their new name is, I'm concerned that they're going to approve it. It's also, there's a rite of passage that we use all the time, and we've been using it for years. And I want to be sure that that passage is not affected by the building of this. If it goes up, that it goes up. Basically, that's about it. Those are my two concerns. It's accessibility. There's a lot of accessible buildings themselves. So all these people who have to go around, I myself, we already have a problem with the sidewalks. How are we going to get around all these benches they plan to put out in the front?
Okay. Those are your comments?
Those are my comments.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the deputy? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time this morning, Michelle. Andy Gort. Andy Gort. Good morning, Andy. Okay, please begin.
Thank you for Mr. Chair and councillors for the opportunity to speak to you today on this application. Again, my name is Andy Gort, G-O-R-T, and I'm the president of the South Eglinton Ratepayers and Residents Association. And we have quite a few members in this Davisville apartment neighborhood. First of all, I want to signify that we strongly support the city's request for direction report, but we do have some comments to add. And there's three specific points that I would like to make. First one is that this application is significant overdevelopment of this site. Second one, that within this relatively small Davisville apartment neighborhood, there is concurrently 7 developments under review. And together they would lead to a significant overdevelopment of this apartment neighborhood to the point of stuffing this apartment neighborhood full of apartment buildings. The third point I would like to make is our request is why there isn't a hold provision on several fronts for this application, as there was just recently for a similar building, a similar application in this same area at 1951 Yonge Street. And we had hold applications for hard infrastructure, for transit capacity on the Yonge line, and for schooling accessibility and capacity in the area. So specifically on the first point about overdevelopment of the site, this site is a fairly small site. The base podium will take up 65% of the site. The tower towers over the whole neighborhood. It'll be a landmark in terms of height at 38 stories. The tower base is too large. The setbacks from the property line is nearly non-existent on the east side, which will take out an important pathway that connects the neighborhood from Davisville to the school there, as well as to the Beltline, and it's part of a network. So those are some of the issues that we have. It will also take out the only grocery store, at least temporarily, that this area has, and you need to travel all the way either to Eglinton or to Sinclair to find any kind of grocery store for this particular area. So that's on the first point. On the second point, this area is characterized as a typical tower in the park neighborhood. When the last census occurred in 2016, this area was already fairly densely populated, something like 9,000 people and 5,500 apartment units. Since then, we have seen the first infill tower in the park infill that's added another 1,000 people. And these 7 applications together will add another 3,500 people and 2,000 units. At the same time, the demographics of this area is changing to much more family-oriented. So we expect that when these applications are in place, we will go from 9,000 to 15,000 people in about 1/4 of a square mile. It's the same size as Port Hope or Coburg. The TDSB has already indicated that the new, yet-to-be-constructed Davisville School will be too small. We're looking at busing. We have a very serious situation at the Davisville subway station of getting on, but also that the platform is way too small. There is hardly any community services in this area, other than one light is that you recently, through Josh's initiatives, approved a community center close by, so at least there is something coming in the next 5 years. But this area is a really isolated area and needs to be focused on, and we need to stop stuffing this neighborhood with apartment buildings. Almost every piece of green that's there will disappear. There is, in none of these applications, any on-site parkland dedication. There is no off-site parkland dedication within this neighborhood that we know of. This is a travesty of planning. The last point about the hold provisions, there was a lot of attention on one of the last applications of these 7 that went forward, where hold provisions were added to the request for directions report, and we're asking that for this application, similarly, hold provisions are added to the report. Of those 7, 5 are already in front of the LPAT in the OMB, the old traditional OMB rules. We're trying to fight these to register as parties, but it's very difficult for neighborhoods to have an impact.
Andy, can I ask you for your final thought, please? Your time's almost up.
Okay, well, my 3 points is we support the report. We would like to add hold provisions, and we'd like the report to start focusing on the neighborhood as a whole, because this development is adding and is part of a much bigger problem within this neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the deputy? No? Thank you for your time today. Are there any other members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? No. Are there any questions of staff? No. Councillor Matlow?
I'll begin with obviously moving the recommendation to challenge this application to LPAT. And I want to thank staff for the work that they've been doing on this with us. I can only reiterate, but sort of flesh out some of the items that Andy Gord just mentioned. So just to explain, Andy represents a residents association called SARA, the South Eglinton Raypearson Residents Association. And they are not only the furthest from sort of a NIMBY group that one could be described as, but they're actually famous within our planning department as a group of very thoughtful people who always try to arrive at sort of what the yes is and how to make things possible. And they don't come out of the bat just saying no to things. So they really do sort of thoughtfully think through what is the best for the community. And I can't concur enough with Andy's position that it's not just a question of how much. And this specific application doesn't meet either our existing secondary plan nor the new Midtown and Focus plan that we approved. So just from a mere, even just policy-wise or from a planning argument, this doesn't fit, this isn't right, and we need to fight it to protect and defend our own policy position in the secondary plan and our official plan. But in a cumulative way, and this is what Andy was speaking to, that I think is so important for all of you to understand, because there's going to be more coming in the Davisville neighborhood, that cumulatively, we are at a situation where, like 1951, around the corner at the LCBO site, there were arguments coming from staff that we really are, rather than just rhetorically concerned about utilities, there actually is a substantive concern about whether or not the water, like the taps will be able to provide water if you move into the building. So there are concerns from our position, not only for the existing residents, but also the people who we'd want to invite into the neighborhood wouldn't get some basic services that they should be expecting to have provided for. Davisville Public School is being redeveloped right now, and even the larger capacity that they'll have in the new building won't meet future projections. So there's still going to be a pressure in the area where there needs to be more elementary school space. But as you know as well as I do, we don't get the entire say over how school capacity is created, what provincial grants are provided to the school board, and how they determine where they're going to build schools. We can assist, we can try to find opportunities to build partnerships, find spaces and podiums. We're working on that, but it doesn't magically happen, and that's a long-term goal. Transit, as you know, if you try to get on at Davisville Station like many other stations, you literally are waiting for 3, 4, 5 trains to go by until you can squeeze your way in. And once you're in there, you know, you're typically having somebody's armpit or somebody's sandwich in your face. It's not good. And that's why I think everybody at this table have been advocating for the relief line to be a genuine priority. The genuine priority. So ultimately, cumulatively altogether, we are concerned about the impact that this building would have. Yes, there's a concern around the loss of the Sobeys, and that's why I think it's important that whether they build a 2-story building or a 100-story building, there needs to be a plan in place through the construction, the transition process, to even have a pop-up, have some place nearby that whether you be a senior or anybody of any age with any mobility challenges, that there's some reasonable walking distance to be able to get your groceries so that it doesn't become a really intense area that ends up being a food desert. So we need to work on that together. I could go on. Bottom line is, you're going to be hearing, this committee is going to be hearing a number of different addresses in the future about where they want to not only increase density on a site like at Sobeys on Beloyal, but we're also really concerned, and I met with staff recently along with Andy, about the concern that we're seeing more of the green spaces. And remember what the Tower in the Park was. So Tower in the Park, decades ago, was this idea that there'd be pre-Section 37, there'd be things called density bonuses. So developers would essentially get, okay, you can go way up there, but you leave us more down here. And what's happening now is that the new owners are saying, okay, we got all that, now we want all that. So now what they want to do is they want to infill onto the green space that residents have as breathing room within that high density. So I will stop there, but this is where we're going with Davisville, and obviously we're going to need your support. We're not saying no to things, we're just saying how do things work in a way that support the quality of life of the residents who live there today and the future residents tomorrow. And I thank you very much to those of you who came and spoke, and to those of you, my colleagues, who are here to support us. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? No? So on the staff recommendation to refuse, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, we'll move now to item TE 2.5, non-residential demolition application 3385 Dundas Street West. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this? Any questions of staff? No? Okay, so I'm going to move recommendation number 3, which is to approve the application to demolish the 1-story building without entering into a beautification agreement with the city, subject to the following 3 conditions. And you can see them listed there. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 2.6, application to remove a private tree, 231 Lawnsmount Drive. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none, any questions of staff? No? Councillor Matlow.
I move the staff recommendation.
On the staff recommendation, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 2.6, application to remove a private tree. Oh, just 2.7. I'm going in circles. Item TE 2.7, application to remove a private tree, 21 Queensdale Avenue. I have listed 2 deputants, Catherine H. Hi, Catherine. Just want to settle in, make yourself comfortable. Okay, ready? Okay. You'll have 5 minutes. There's a clock up here to my right. Please go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, councillors. So we would like to appeal the decision by Urban Forestry to deny our request for a permit to remove one privately owned tree located at 21 Queensdale Avenue. So we appreciate the environmental benefits of having mature trees in our neighborhood. In fact, we currently have 9 trees in our backyard that we care for and maintain, 8 of which are mature trees greater than 35 centimeters in diameter. So this includes 4 black walnuts and 4 Manitoba maples within a 23 by 58 foot space. So we are requesting the removal of one of the 8 mature trees on our property, which is located in the center of our backyard, not only to avoid potential injury from falling nuts to our 4-month-old son, who will be playing in our backyard this spring and summer, but also to allow grass and other vegetation to grow, which in addition to the remaining mature trees in our backyard will continue to provide benefits to the community for many years. Further, we would replant another approved tree in another location on our property. So we hope that the Community Council will consider our appeal and grant us the permit to remove the subject tree and plant a replacement tree.
Those your comments?
Yes, do you have any
Okay, thank you.
questions?
Are there any questions of the deputant? No? Seeing none. I also have listed Kevin Downs. Thank you very much.
That's my husband, he's not here.
Pardon me?
That's my husband, he's not here.
Oh, okay. Are there any other members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Catherine. Are there any questions of staff on the item?
I'm just going to
Councillor
ask
Fletcher.
the clerks, because someone had said they didn't
Question
get
of-
a notice and asked to have that. Could you just explain that, please?
So you've been asked a formal question.
Just for the notice issue.
I believe, Councillor Fletcher, we contacted your office as we forwarded an email as one of the members of the public had said that unfortunately the mail they hadn't received our notice until yesterday. So in their email, which I forwarded, they were asking perhaps if you would consider a deferral. And I think it might be.
I'm sorry, we'd have to now let us do our work. Okay, thank you.
So there was a request to defer, but the deputant has come. Is that correct? Without the deferral. So I'm just going to stand this down and sort this out, Madam, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we'll hold this one down.
Thank you.
Item T 2.8, application to remove a private tree, 164 Westwood Avenue. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none, are there any questions of staff?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to be moving to withdraw this from the agenda.
Okay, so motion to withdraw. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, that brings us to the 10:30 items. We're almost at 10:30. Is there any business we can do for 90 seconds? Councillor Layton.
If I could return to item TE 2.67, this is a letter from the Cecil Community Center. My apologies, I wasn't aware that it had been submitted. It's not from my office, it's from the Cecil Community Center. It just has to do with appointments to their board, so I'll happily move the recommended additions to their board.
Okay.
Changes.
So if you're following along, this is on page 84 of the goldenrod sheets. All those in favor of Councillor Layton's motion? All those opposed? That carries.
Further, on item TE 2.80, this is a letter regarding 41 and 45 Spadina Road. My apologies, my new letterhead's not done yet, so we're just using the generic. Probably why I didn't catch my eye as something critically important in the ward. But this is a recommendation to advance to the Senior Manager, Heritage Preservation Services, the evaluation of two properties on Spadina Road we believe are under threat and could qualify as heritage properties. Important
Very good.
Heritage properties.
So with that, all those in favor?
And if I could, there's a beautiful article written about these properties when they were built, about how the three-story walk-ups would bring a certain element to the neighborhood that was undesirable. And despite the fact that they're large three-bedroom units that are absolutely beautiful and continue to be to this day.
Those NIMBYs. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. With that, we can now go on to our 10:30 items. My goodness, I think we've set a record for how early we get to parking pads. Item TE 2.9, front yard parking appeal, 165 Wallace Avenue. I have a deputant listed, Chun Yan Lee. Think they're okay? Okay, so this is Ward 14. Oh, an error. Which ward is this?
Yes?
This is you. Did,
Yes? Oh, this one's, I'm just going to hold that one. Unless
hold that?
he's here, I'd like to
No, her.
know if, not Wallace.
No, we're on Wallace.
Yeah, that's not me.
Okay, I clearly didn't have enough coffee. Sorry, this is 2.9, Wallace. I've called the deputant, Chun Yan Lee, not heard back. Councillor Bailao, how would you like to proceed?
I'm going to put on the table to grant the front yard parking. So as you know, there's a moratorium in my area, and we had a pilot project. This is a result of a pilot project that we had last term that has ended, and so this is still the result of that. And as you recall, for the ones, for my colleagues that were here, with the exception of Councillor Bradford, there wasn't, I think there was maybe a couple that made it here. The pilot project is all about giving the opportunity to homeowners that had the parking pad before the bylaw, the moratorium was installed, to legalize it if they are willing to do all the greening initiatives, to change to semi-permeable pavement, to do the downspouts, and so on and so forth. Obviously, if they fulfill all the conditions, there's no impact on parking, the ramp is there, they don't even need to come here. The only reason why this one is in front of us is because it didn't meet the minimum criteria. And as you know, the problems that we have with pollings when ballots go out. So the ballots went out, and they didn't meet the minimum criteria of returns. Out of the returns that came back, 88% were in favor of the pad. It doesn't have any impacts. The ramp is there, and the homeowner has agreed to change the pavement, to do all the green initiatives. And I think it's a win. We get a better condition on the pad. If we do nothing, it's just going to stay the way it is. And I'm asking for your support in this condition. As you know, I don't come here very often. I do have the moratorium. I kept the moratorium. This, when the moratorium came into effect, I heard from a lot of residents was done in a big rush. We require proof that this was done before the moratorium came. Staff always checks that, and it is required that they prove that the pad existed before the moratorium. So I'm just asking that you support this legalization, and that we are able to actually create some green initiatives in here.
Okay, I'm going to move refusal. So we'll take Councillor Bailao's motion first. All those in favor? I need to see hands, guys. 1, 2, are you scratching or is that a hand?
Scratching.
3, 4, 5. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3. So that carries. So the motion to refuse is moot, and that parking pad is approved. Item TE 2.10, front yard parking appeal, 34 Ellerbeck Street. William Habkirk? Is William Habkirk here? Are there any other members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none. Are there any questions on the item?
I just want to ask the staff, because this is all a new area, there is a moratorium in my former ward. Sorry, I was going to ask that.
Yes,
There's a moratorium in my former ward for permit parking.
in 31. Former?
30.
30, yes, yeah,
And there was no moratorium in 29.
correct.
So any of these applications that came in would simply be looked at on their merits, because people could still apply.
Yes.
Is that right? So I'm just going to hold this down while I figure out what I'm doing with that. And how would I introduce that moratorium now in Cross Ward 14?
Well, I'm sure if you submit a report to have it implemented.
And some of these things where there are different provisions in the old wards and now the larger wards, and there are differences. Is there a staff-generated thing to harmonize them, or do we have to generate that to harmonize those approaches?
Believe you would have to bring it to community council to have it, and then go to council to have it agreed upon, to have the moratorium put in place? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I think I'd like to know how, some of that. I know in the old amalgamation, when the wards changed, some of the sections just got the moratorium added on as of right, kind of as of right. So there's no attempt to or thinking that you're going to do that.
And with this new ward boundaries as well, it's our bylaw as being ward-specific, it's really,
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Yep, got it.
So the intention is still to hold the item down?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, oh, sorry, I don't need a motion on that. Okay. So, item TE 2.11, 42 Bellhaven Road. Are there any members of the public who want to make a deputation on this? I see someone coming forward. Could you sit down and give us your name, sir? I'm sorry. Gary Kaczynski?
Yes.
Just make a note of that. Okay, Gary, you have 5 minutes. There's a clock up here that you can watch your time with. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm the homeowner at 42 Bellhaven Road. The primary reason I'm asking for a parking pad is out of health concerns for my wife's father. He suffered a series of strokes and is not very mobile. He's turning 80, and with us living on an incline, we're very concerned for his mobility issues, getting him to and from the hospital or his appointments. We're worried that if he were to fall and break a hip, it could be a death sentence. So the primary reason is such. The secondary reason is that we would really like to stop putting carbon in the atmosphere. We would love an electric vehicle. There is no means for us to easily charge an electric vehicle. There's no parking on our side of the street. We only have the parking, the shared mutual 1 month, every other month. So it is completely infeasible for us to charge an electric vehicle. We understand the concerns of the council for the issues involved with the parking pad, with water runoff, and with reducing the reliance on automobiles. But unfortunately, the nature of my wife's job is she needs a vehicle. So we are stuck in the situation where we need to keep burning fossil fuels. We would like a means to get off of it, but we can't afford a house with a parking driveway, given the nature of the housing market, and we're kind of stuck. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Are there any questions of the deputy? Seeing none, any questions of staff? No? Councillor Bradford?
Am I able to speak to this?
Yes, I've just called you to speak.
Right. Thank you, Chair. Thanks very much, Gary, for coming down. This parking pad appeal is a carryover from the previous councillor. I know that this is a challenging position for everybody. And I understand that the bylaws have recently changed that would impact this application. I think that probably with respect to parking pads, as I've seen it over the years, and certainly you have much more experience with it, we need to perhaps take another look at the process, see how we could maybe take it out and have another look to consider the issues of permeability, impacts to permit parking, soft landscaping, tree protection, and access, as Gary has pointed out here, for electric charging vehicles. I think that's something that's going to be really important for us to address going forward. And I'm not, I don't see that we necessarily have a good solution to that at this point. So I also know the polling that was done on the street did have positive response of 74% of respondents, 42 out of 57. So there is support on the street for this. I think that these are exceptional circumstances, but I'm going to move a motion to defer this indefinitely. Defer this for, is that something I can do? Not indefinitely.
So you have a couple of options.
Sure.
You can defer it for a specific amount of time.
Yeah.
If you defer it indefinitely, you're effectively saying we don't want to ever consider this unless some new facts come to light and you proactively
Right.
try to bring it back onto the agenda.
Great, so I want us to consider this again. I would like to defer this.
1 month, 2 months, 3 months?
3 months.
3 months, so the April meeting?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
So there's a motion to defer to the April meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, members, that completes our list of timed items. I have a hard time believing this is a Toronto East York Community Council meeting. It's not yet. Typically, it would be, 20 to 11 at night before we got to this point. I understand some members do have items they wish to add to the agenda. If you could really hurry that up, we can run through continuously. Otherwise, we would have to recess and come back.
I can finish my time.
So I first have Councillor Cressy.
I'm not moving that.
Thank you, Chair. I held down 2 items, which I'd be happy at this point to release if it's the will of committee.
Okay, you held one with deputations pending. Is that one of them, or?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, we can go to those. That's fine. So which one would you like to do first?
Item TE 2.32. I had held that item. I can release it.
3.2. Could you tell me the title, please?
It was extension of permanent parking hours to Tecumseh Street.
Oh, item 3. I'm sorry.
TE item 2.32.
Okay. Sorry. Extension permit parking hours on Tecumseh. No, it's this one. Yeah. So are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on item TE 3.32? Seeing none, Councillor Cressy.
I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
And the second is on item TE .3, 2.3. We can now hear that item. One of the deputants, I understand, I had a meeting in the hallway with a series of adjacent residents, and one of the deputants has withdrawn. I understand there is somebody else here.
So, yes, my understanding is Jeff is withdrawn, but Kevin Van Niekerk would like to make a deputation. Are you Kevin, sir? Please come forward. Okay, Kevin, good morning. There's a clock up here that will give you your time. You have 5 minutes. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. I'm an owner at 50 Stewart Street. It's an 1860s Victorian house, a semi. There are 6 semis on Stewart Street remaining. I own one of those 6. So 3 pairs of semis. We are in a situation on Stewart Street where we are becoming nail houses. Now, I want to ask you to, in your own time, if you don't know what that means, it's a neologism, referring to owners of property that get frozen by developers who are unwilling, unable to buy them out for their proposed developments. I'm very concerned that our little houses will be a Canadian version of this Chinese phenomena. It concerns me because in the 15 years I've lived resident on Stewart Street, as a taxpayer, I've owned 3 properties and rented 1. So I've been on Stewart Street in 4 places. In all of that time, I've seen massive development on that little street. It is a 1-block long road. It is one way, and it is in the hierarchy below King and below Bathurst, I understand, in applications, requests for access to new buildings. So the proposed development in the Hoxton building will take its access off Stewart Street, I imagine. Now, I don't know, perhaps I can ask Joe, Do you know, Joe, if...
Sorry.
Am I allowed to ask
This is your time to tell us
I
what
beg
you
your
think.
pardon?
Yeah.
I do have a question. In the application for demolition by the developer of rental housing, does that include the 2 Victorian properties that are adjacent and included in their development? It doesn't.
So we'll leave that as a rhetorical question, which
thank you.
members may address during their time.
I'll move on quickly then, thank you. My big concern is that in my little house, I'm now trapped in. I've been subject to the Thompson Hotel being built opposite my house. I've been subject to 610 King Street being built just behind my house on King. I was subject to the coincident construction right on my property line of the massive black Thompson residence building, which shook us all to the core. I suffered damage to my property from that excavation. The curtain wall process was shaking us to our core. This goes on and on and on. There are 5 buildings that are trapping us in. We're becoming nail houses. So please consider that. And lastly, if I may, I had vibration monitoring systems that were Wi-Fi connected to engineering companies placed on my property when Freed and his partners built the Thompson residences behind my house. It made no difference to what happened. We were shaken to our core. I have major cracks in my property from that process. We have lived through hell. That is just one example of 5. The dust, the dirt, the mess. I'm also concerned about your consideration for these developers to put HVAC and building service appliances at ground level, as we see in the Thompson residences opposite my home. We have HVAC fans that are blowing at decibel levels that I would challenge your sound engineers to come and look at. They keep us up all night long. These services should have been at the top of the building, but for some reason, when that happened in 2009, it proceeded. So I'm very concerned about access. I'm concerned about how you plan to approve vehicular access.
Kevin, could I ask you for your final thought?
Help us and do not allow us to become nail houses.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, any questions of Steph? Sorry.
Do it as, are you now aware that the 2 Victorians you referenced are not proposed to be demolished?
No,
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions of the deputant? No? Are there any questions of staff? Councillor Bailao.
The rental replacement, so there's 7 units, 2 you're replacing as affordable housing and 5 mid-range, correct?
That's fine.
And why are you only securing the 2 affordable units for 10 years? Yeah, I noticed that. That's why I'm bringing this up. We're probably going to have to change that standard. Yeah. Are these income tested?
No.
Okay. So can I make an amendment, or the owner to make an amendment? I mean, why are we securing affordable units and then we don't income test for the people that are going to live in these affordable units?
Never done.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
It's not how it works. Are there any other questions of staff? Oh, wait. Oh, we're waiting. Yeah.
We're just waiting for some feedback.
We would have to, the light's not working over here, so we don't know if this is working or not. Through you, Mr. Chair, we would have to check with the Affordable Housing Office as to how we would set up a process for income testing. Normally, that would not run through the city.
Yeah, so I would assume that it would be like any affordable housing unit that we support in the city of Toronto.
Yeah, so it would be a change to the process. We'd have to take a look at how we would be able to implement something like that, working with the Affordable Housing Office.
Okay.
Those are questions? I have some questions. So this is the rental replacement bylaw that governs the work we're doing here. In the rental replacement bylaw, does the language speak to the rent of the unit rather than the income of the tenant?
That's correct.
So our authority to take action here is based on the rent of the unit, not on the income of the tenant.
That is correct.
We can request that.
So we would need to find some other mechanism or amend the bylaw in order to begin imposing the kind of means testing.
You can secure it through.
That would be my understanding. I would have to take some advice.
Maybe city solicitor can give us some advice here.
Well, to be fair, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know completely off the top of my head, but I think it's something we need to look into to see if there are other mechanisms through contract or other ways that we could try to secure it. It's a really complex issue, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I think it's certainly something we could explore.
It's something we could explore.
Yeah.
Is it something you feel confident right now that we have the authority to do?
On this particular file?
That's correct.
Just one moment.
We've stumped them, guys.
I think it's something that we would, Mr. Chair, I think it's something that we would have to explore with the applicant on this file to see if there's something we could, yeah.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions of staff? Seeing none. Councillor Cressy.
Well, thank you. And I think the conversation, let me start by saying I will be moving the recommendations from city staff here. And before getting into the details, I would just note the policy conversation writ large related to Section 111 as it relates to the rent of a unit versus a means test and the income of the individual. But that is a policy issue writ large. It is not one which we are resolving as part of this file. Let me speak to this as this is a settlement, as we've dealt with many times around this chamber, where it is not perfect for anyone. That is the art of a settlement, sadly. In this case, we have what was once a 19-story and is now a 17-story building with heritage retention, which meets the Heritage Conservation District we've put in place in King Spadina, with rental replacement, which we will work with our office diligently to ensure is done appropriately, and a Section 37 in the amount of $2.5 million, which includes 20% towards affordable housing and $1 million towards community services and $1 million towards parks. It is a settlement. Settlements, if anybody thought they won, everybody's lost. That is not how a settlement works. But I want to speak writ large in response to some of the comments that have been made from one of the deputants here in terms of King Spadina, but specifically here first. Between now and the eventual demolition and construction, one of the items in this is the requirement for a detailed construction management plan, which takes and will be developed along with stakeholders in the community, both in the existing building as well as adjacent, which will deal with items related to dust and noise and vibration monitoring, which will be required, and so we would invite you to be part of that, as well as for the 7 rental units, we will be working closely with them as per the Section 111 rental replacement. But just at a broad level as we enter this new term, in King Spadina, in 1996 we had 944 people living in King Spadina. Today we have more than 20,000 people living in King Spadina, and that's a success. The Two Kings vision that was put in place by former Mayor Barbara Hall allowed downtown Toronto to become what it is today, which is a vibrant mixed-use neighborhood as opposed to a hollowed-out core like many U.S. cities went, with the emergence of both residential and commercial outside of the core. The trick is not whether or not to grow in downtown and grow in King Spadina, but rather to ensure that in doing so, we're building neighborhoods, not just building buildings. And that means ensuring that good planning principles which have been met on this site are always applied, from heritage retention to heights and separation distances. And on heritage, I should be very clear, because we put in place a heritage conservation district, we have retention and appropriate setbacks on this building, but the adjacent Victorians are not being demolished. But going forward, and this is the ongoing work, As Councillor Matlow referred to when it relates to Davisville, livability is more than heritage and planning. It is actually the parks and the community centers and the schools and the childcares and that work, whether it's the nearby YMCA, whether it's the nearby parks at Richmond and Maud or the expansion of St. Andrews, that work needs to be at our forefront. And with that, I will close by saying that I will be moving the staff settlement, the staff-supported settlement, and I thank our City of Toronto staff for their work and Councillor Bailão for raising the important policy issue related to rental replacement and whether we can utilize that to increase the amount of means-tested affordable units in the city if we can. Thank you.
Any other members to speak to the item? Okay, seeing none, on Councillor Cressy's motion, all those in favor? All those opposed? That carries. Okay. Tree?
We have all your trees ready, or front yard parking too, but the one, number 8 has to be reconsidered.
Oh, you have a motion to reconsider?
Yeah, for number 8. Yeah, motion for number 8.
Correct. Number 8, to reconsider number 8, open that so I can defer that.
Okay, items. Members, Councillor Fletcher would like to reconsider item TE 2.8, application to remove a private tree, 164 Westwood.
No.
No?
8.
8.
Yeah, 8.
I'm sorry, I'm deferring. Whatever you'd like me to do, I'm happy to do.
Everyone talk amongst themselves. We'll sort it out.
So that was the private tree that we heard the deputant from.
Sorry, before you do, so this is the item you're moving to reconsider, correct?
Yeah.
This one.
Correct.
Okay, so we have a motion to reconsider that. All those in favor?
Item 8.
All those opposed? That carries. So do you want to deal with that now?
Sure.
Okay, on item 2.8, application to remove a private tree, 164 Westwood Avenue. Councillor Fletcher.
This item be deferred until March 19th. Toronto East York Community Council and requests forestry staff to undertake a site visit with the ward councillor prior to the meeting.
Thank you very much. On that motion, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right.
What?
Councillor, is it ready? Okay. Could you tell me the item number?
I'm sorry. This is all very confusing. So I'd like to just go back. The deputy 164 was withdrawn from the agenda, and that's correct. 164.
Yes, the motion to withdraw was...
I'm sorry, I'm just going to... Motion to withdraw was item 8. It was number 7 where we had the deputant come that originally had asked for a deferral. And... 7 is held. Pardon me? That one was held. So it's actually number 7 that I want to defer for that period of time. I apologize. And number...
One cycle, we have it ready.
Exactly what was that motion was actually for item 7, not item 8.
Okay.
And item
so here's what I
8
recommend.
is
Councillor, if I
withdrawn.
could just try to tidy this up. So I think what we need to do, if you wanted item 8 withdrawn, and that's all you wanted from that,
Correct.
is we now have to reopen and reconsider item 8 and then move the motion to withdraw. So on that,
Right.
item 8, all those who are in favor of reconsidering it, thank you. Can I have a motion to withdraw it?
So
Councillor
moved.
Fletcher, all those in favor?
Thank you.
Opposed, carried. Now you wish to go to item 7, which you had held. Please proceed.
Yes, and the motion that I moved for the deferral for the March 19th is actually so I can go out with that deputant and see the tree.
So the motion is to defer it to the March meeting and directing staff to conduct a site visit with the councillor prior to the March meeting.
That's correct.
Did we get that?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor?
Let's just see it because I'm making so many mistakes. There we go. Item 7. Thank you.
Opposed? That carries. Councillor Cressy, you had your hand
And
up.
sorry, I have 10 yet.
Yes, I know. But Councillor Cressy had the floor
No problem.
before we tried to tidy this up.
Didn't want me to forget.
I have a list.
Good.
The clerks make sure I never forget.
Great.
Councillor Cressy.
Thank you, Chair. And with my apologies and the indulgence of the committee, I have to ask to reopen item 2.32. This is extension of permit parking hours on Tecumseh Street. I have a technical amendment from staff, clerk staff, that I need to move.
So motion to reconsider. All those in favor? All those opposed? That carries. Councillor Cressy. You moving this motion? Questions, speeches? All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So now, Councillor Fletcher, if you're prepared, we could move to item TE 2.10, front yard parking appeal, 34 Ellerbeck Street.
Thank you. And that one, I will also defer to March.
So the motion is to defer consideration of this item until the March meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 2.11, front yard parking appeal, 42 Bellhaven. Am I correct there? That's done. Okay, that was my error, not the clerk's. I want to be real clear about that, folks. Okay, Councillor Bradford, are you prepared to do 47, the parking amendments on Woodbine?
Yeah, I just had questions.
Okay, so we'll go to questions of staff. Councillor Bradford, you have the floor.
Thanks very much. This would be towards transportation services. Thanks. Thanks for all your work on this file. As an incoming councillor, I'm just wondering if you can briefly provide the background here and the decision to extend the existing stopping prohibition.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, it did come through former Councillor Davis at a request of local residents. Concern was with the sight lines at the corner. This is in the section of Woodbine with the bike lane, so there was a couple spaces created at that corner. We had a complaint about the sight lines, so we took a look into it, and as a result of that, we've recommended removal of a spot to a spot and a half in this location.
How will this improve the safety for drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians?
The critical sightline that we're looking at is really of vehicles on the street. The sightlines are good for cyclists and are good for pedestrians. However, seeing traffic, it does create a little bit of a sightline issue with the cars parked at this particular location. So it clears it up and makes it safer for vehicles exiting from the side street.
Right. That's all my questions. I'd like to move a motion to support the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. I believe that takes us to 2.66, the endorsement of events for liquor licensing purposes. Councillor Layton, you had held this, and I believe Councillor Wong-Tam, you had a motion as well. Councillor Layton, you're going to address us from the... No, it's not required to fill all the moments.
I know. I just wanted to share. I wanted to share something with folks, because this is what we're struggling with in some areas. So I just wanted to show this. This is a sign out front of an establishment in now the new Ward 11 that actually says, I'm going to read it out, 4 a.m. last call madness. And then really small there, it says, every night that we can. They came forward with 30 for one event.
31.
30 4 a.m. extensions for one event, and I already know there's 15 coming for another event. And that's outside of Canada Music Week, Pride, all the other events that have some city significance. It's unclear, too, how these events are significant on the municipal basis. So we negotiated the number of evenings down for this one event, but this, I think, is symptomatic of a very significant problem, both the way we administer these 4 a.m. extensions and how there seems to be absolutely zero accountability. What I used to do was, when we got our list, I would go through and look if there were any bars that had consistent complaints. And I would say, take that one off, that one off. You'll remember there was a large debate at City Council about one particular establishment, which had a shooting every year for for 3 years running, and we took them off for one particular event. But when we're not keeping track of how many cumulative events are stacking up, we were just having bars invent events and submit letters saying this is staff appreciation. I would ask, what are you appreciating them with? Is there free food? They're like, no. It was simply just an excuse to stay open later. And we have a couple of these establishments in the ward, and I had a motion I was going to bring forward around notification to police, because we have some serious safety concerns that police have brought up to us, and they've been involved in the renegotiation of this particular one. But to have them comment, to have MLS comment to us here about what the reputation of these establishments has been. I also think that, in fact, the AGCO should get the first crack at these, because they're not approving all the ones that go through here. That they're seeing that some of these aren't actually events of municipal significance, despite the fact that we're declaring that. So I'll have some language for a motion. I know staff are reviewing this, and so rather than bring a motion forward today, I'd like to just make sure that if it's not coming back sooner, that we have something in the interim, because we can't go through the list, particularly when they come just days before the meeting. We can't then do the research necessary, contact police to get their feedback. And something's going to happen if we just allow these evenings to accumulate in neighborhoods. So I'm fine with what has gone forward here. Part of the agreement was to take that bloody sign down, because it's simply not the intent. I'm also, and I should say, I'm a supporter of all bars and restaurants going to a later time. I know I'm in disagreement of some of my closest council friends on this. My father ran on that point for mayor 3 decades ago. But we then need to resource it properly if we're actually going to do that, which we're not at this point. So just because a couple people have found a way to keep their businesses open later isn't a good enough excuse, and there aren't enough protections for the public there.
Thank you, Councillor Layton. Councillor Cressy to speak.
Because we have time, 30 seconds, that I think Councillor Layton has raised an important point with respect to the 4 a.m. extensions, which is that these should be the exception, not the rule. And we're finding in downtown a pattern whereby they are becoming part of the business model with an expectation of them. But I just want to flag for every member of TYCC that this term, this issue related to the hours of operation for serving liquor, for bars and restaurants, is going to be coming forward, because the whole report on the nighttime and economy is coming forward, and there is a push from many operators and from some departments in the city to look at a full expansion or extension from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. And in many ways, this is being driven under the objective of economic development. And I want to flag this, because this will be coming forward in the next year for all of us as councillors, that there are 2 other considerations beyond economic development that I think need to supersede that. The first and the most important one is health. That when you make it easier to consume alcohol, you escalate and exacerbate the harms associated with alcohol. And when you make it easier to consume alcohol later, you escalate and exacerbate the public health harms around alcohol as well. And so health, at the first and foremost, is a consideration on this. And the second is, we designed in many of our communities, and I represent many of them, mixed-use neighborhoods as mixed-use neighborhoods. They're not Sleepy Hollows, but nor are they entertainment districts. And when we start a consideration of expanding the hours of the sale and consumption of alcohol, we tip that balance from a mixed-use neighborhood to an entertainment neighborhood when it becomes a district-wide policy. And so I just want to flag that and take this moment to say that this is going to be coming forward this term, and we all as councillors need to be aware of it, and there will be a big discussion in terms of what is the objective. Economic development, public health, livability, all of these come into play. Thank you.
With thanks for the Ichabod Crane reference, Councillor Wong Tam.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chair, I'd like to move a motion, if the staff can put that on the screen, that TYCC postpone the consideration of designation of Toronto Pride as an event of municipal significance as listed in Attachment A to the report, December 17th, from City Clerk until February the 14th. Thank you. I had a meeting with Pride Toronto. It concerned me, and I think it should concern many in the area because we don't know where these locations are going to go. But it concerned me that they were asking for a designation of municipal significance as it relates to alcohol consumption in locations undisclosed. So where it says in the first line and row, it says the locations to be provided at a later date. And the event date now for Pride is about a month long. So it begins on June the 1st and ends close to June the 30th. And the extension of hours are oftentimes 4 a.m. So I think that we, speaking in support of what Councillor Layton and Councillor Cressy has just alluded to, and actually spoken very directly to, is that we need to be able to find a baseline of what we define as municipal significance as an event. Because, definitely Pride is, they have a very long history of being that, but the creep outside of the village footprint and the assumption that anyone and everyone will get a designation to provide alcohol consumption beyond the normal hours in any neighborhood, whether they provide any Pride programming or not, is a little bit concerning. I also know that, and it's not necessarily just Pride, but I also am aware that many of these organizers of these events actually charge establishments a fee in order for them to become one of the designated locations. So there's a generating sort of profit center there that's largely without any qualifications and considerations. It's just a business model that has emerged over a period of time. But the AGCO originally set up and asked for the municipal, the event of municipal significance designation, largely to support special occasion permits in non-licensed areas. So what's happened now, of course, is that it's become licensed bars and restaurants that have taken advantage of this loophole, and the loophole remains open. But if we apply the actual consideration of what should be in place, I would say a good number of them that are before us at every single meeting would not qualify. And that would be special occasion permits, unlicensed events, events of cultural nonprofit significance to support nonprofits in those spaces. That's not what's before us every single month at this point in time. So we definitely need to take a look at that. And I would say that it's not just about the nighttime economy, but we need to be able to provide clarity and consistency so applicants know exactly what we can expect, what they can expect when they make the application. And you'll even notice that every single letter that comes before us has a different format. Some of them list what they do. Some of them list who might be attending. Some of them might list some criteria around the expected number of attendees. But it's certainly all over the place, and there's no template that they're following. Thank you.
So we have the amendment from Councillor Wong Tam. Oh, Councillor Layton?
My apologies.
No worries.
The clerk and the Toronto Police and the owner of an establishment are all, and the AGCO are all doing a bit of back and forth on one of the items on there. And so I'm going to have to make an amendment.
It's okay.
This is literally happening in real time as like
This is exciting.
a police sergeant, the AGCO, and others are sending emails about what we can and can't do around conditions.
Members of the public, you're getting a moment into the life of Councillor Layton right now.
Yeah.
We'll just relax for a minute.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Yes, that's
formally
fine.
in the
Thank you.
bylaw, but we're going to have a relax.
So I have a motion. It'll come up on the screen, but it says that the request for municipal significance for license extension and communications TE 25520 only be approved for the following dates: February 9th, 15th, 16th, and 23rd. Council stated its objection to the remainder of the dates. I'll just explain this quickly. We had an agreement that we went down from about 30 dates to 14, and only for half of the venue. It's a two-story venue that have one liquor license.
Oh, those are
two separate venues. We were going to license only one. The AGCO then said you could not do that, and so I really have no other choice. I need to figure this out. I'm prepared to grant the first month of events. They've agreed to only do it on that one floor. I'm going to hold them to it. And if February 9th, 15th, and 16th go well, then I'm quite happy to extend it to the rest of the dates. But I have no other way of ensuring compliance. So I'm going to just have to do it with multiple letters over multiple community councils.
I don't think that would. I think that we actually should delegate the late night activity to Councillor Cressy. Okay, so with Councillor Layton's, okay. Any other motions? Okay. So voting. First, we vote on Councillor Wong-Tam's motion. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Councillor Layton's motion. All those in favor, opposed, carried. On the item as amended, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Is this item still to be introduced?
So now we're up to 66. So now we need to add 83 and 84 to the agenda.
Okay. Councillors, I have two items that were late circulation items. One from Councillor, both from Councillor Bailao. So Councillor Bailao, can I have motions to introduce them?
That we introduce item
83 and 4.
2.83, request, it's report on a Boulevard Cafe license to come back in June.
So can I just have a motion to add the two of them?
Motion to add.
So all in favor of adding those two items? Thank you. So now on item 83.
So this is Boulevard Cafe. There were some complications in the approval of this through my predecessor, and I'm just trying to make it right. So
I suspect this will be a common problem.
So I hope that I can get your support to get a report back in June. There was an application, staff was against it, there was a petition, the councillor approved it. He then said that the petition didn't get to him on time, and he wanted to withdraw the approval, but the applicant had already requested the permits, was already building the patio. So at the advice of staff, they said this would be the best way to deal with the situation.
So you want to, this is to ask for a report?
A report back in June on how they're
Okay.
complying with everything, and I've been working with the residents and.
So the clerks have that? Yes, good. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Item 84.
This is just a parking prohibition. People are parking too close to the intersection and to driveways, and this is just to protect visibility sites.
So your motion is that we recommend that parking be prohibited at all times on the north side of Earlsdale Avenue between a point 28 meters west of Oakwood Avenue and 15 meters further west. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We've run out of business.
Wow.
We got to do the bills?
Who wants to go?
You young people wear me out. Wear me out, Councillor Cressy. Oh, we went so fast, the clerks need a moment to prepare the bills. I think this is something like a record.
It is a record. Let's put it on the record.
I think Councillor Fletcher should open the meeting every time.
Okay. You know Island Foods in your ward, it's going to get wiped out.
I don't know that. Just a minute, let me ask transportation.
Northeast corner.
Yes.
Transportation.
Anyway, they're my friends. I was there. There's a toilet.
I will look at it. So, Councillor Wong Tam, you have a motion.
I do, Mr. Chair. That Toronto East Shore Community Council pass and declare as bylaws Bills 138 to 165, 167 to 170, 172 to 183, 187 to 204, and 213 to 216 prepared for the January 19, 2019 meeting 2 of the Community Council. Thank you.
Motion.
Thank you, Chair. Move the motion that the Toronto and East Shore Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Toronto and East Shore Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 2 on January 15, 2019.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. You guys have been a treat today. Just a treat. Thank you very much to all the clerk staff and city staff for their help.